So it's been a rough time for Bungie's marathon recently. I think nobody can really deny that. The public alpha came out and it was critically lambasted. I haven't gotten the chance to play it myself, unfortunately, but everything I've heard about the alpha and everything I've heard from people who have gotten the chance to play it is that it's just terrible. That it just feels bad. It's not great to play. It's not really that fun even with friends. And the fact that it is like a 3v3 kind of kills the experience, because if you're just stuck with two randos, it makes the game far more frustrating than it needs to be. So already there's been a lot of criticism towards Marathon, and a lot of people who are just tired of the live service trend, who want to see Bungie go back and do a single player game a la their work on the original Halos. But for what it's worth, all of that negativity could potentially be sidelined and could potentially be sort of reversed if the final game comes out and it's way better than the alpha, and it proves that like, no, Bungie can like do a pretty decent extraction shooter. So right now it's not off to the best foot, but you know, they could always turn it around. But what surfaced a few days ago did not help turn it around, and if anything, only made things worse. So very long story short, an artist by the name of Anti-Real, or N2, she has two names on her Twitter, I'm not sure what she prefers to be called. The art director in the Bungie stream called her Anti-Real, so I'm gonna go with that. But Miss Anti-Real essentially discovered that her art portfolio, several pieces of her art, were not only stolen and used for Marathon, but just slapped all over the environment. Like, so many of the assets in the alpha were actually her art that Bungie had seemingly taken and used without her permission or even knowledge. As you can imagine, she wasn't happy about this. She took to Twitter. She said, hey, cool that people at Bungie like my art, I guess, but you friggin' stole a bunch of stuff from me. You stole a bunch of art pieces from me and used it in your game without credit or consent. So, you know, that's not cool. Do you think you could do something about that? In fact, to quote Miss Real herself, clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over their game without pay or attribution, unquote. So needless to say, she fucking tore into them on social media. And Bungie responded in just the strangest way ever. Instead of just putting out like a statement on social media or just like putting out a little thing that says, hey, we're gonna take care of this, they instead dedicated the third day of their live stream, because they were doing a live stream for the alpha and showing gameplay. And on that third day, instead of doing more gameplay, they brought out the art director, who, by the way, not to be rude to this man, I'm sure he's been going for a lot of shit, he looks terrible. This man, I'm trying not to be mean, but I get the feeling PR just threw him out to do damage control, but he was not ready for it whatsoever. So he comes out and talks about how, hey, we're really sorry, we didn't know this happened, we are committed to our review process, and we're going to make sure this doesn't happen in Marathon again or happen in any Bungie game again. And that's all well and good, except for the fact that the chat was just openly shitting on him. The chat was just nothing but plagiarism will make me a god or some crazy shit like that. And the moment when he looks at the fucking chat, my god, I'm trying not to be mean, but I could not help but just burst out laughing when I saw the screenshot of him looking at the chat and just becoming fucking dejected, like even more dejected than he was when he entered the stream. So they came out, they responded. I don't know what they're gonna do about this, because apparently it is not just one or two pieces. Like I said, her assets, her portfolio, Miss Anti-Real's art was all over the beta, was all over the alpha, all over the alpha environments. So her art was like a big part of the game's visual style. And so I don't know what they're going to do if they're gonna have to replace it and come up with new art that's like fits the style but isn't close enough to her art. I don't know if they're just gonna try to like pay her some money and see if they can credit her and keep her stuff, or see if they can like hash something out legally that allows them to use their stuff and use her stuff in exchange for some kind of compensation. And the reason why this is getting so much attention, other than the fact that it's Marathon and people are already down on this game, and so any bad news is going to be compounded times 10 when people are already annoyed with your game. But aside from that, the big reason why this is rubbing so many people the wrong way is because this has happened before with Bungie titles. This happened with Destiny 2, where several pieces of art and several weapon designs and even just like decals were stolen from people online and used in the game without credit. And Bungie is trying to explain themselves here. They They say this is the work of a former employee who's no longer at the studio, and they say that they are, again, the art director said they were committed to the review, which leaves me somewhat doubtful because if your review did not catch multiple instances of plagiarism in the past over several years, I don't know what's going to change to make it so you're actually going to start catching plagiarism now. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. We'll have to see if they actually are able to improve the review process and keep this from happening again. But man, I just was curious how on earth this keeps happening, because one would have to assume that the higher ups at Bungie would know that letting this stuff through and letting this keep happening is just waiting for a lawsuit to happen, is just inviting them to get sued. So I have to assume they didn't know, but I have to also wonder how little attention are you paying to your art team and how little attention are you paying to what's going on if multiple instances of plagiarism keep sneaking through time and time again. It's just kind of bizarre to me either way. But I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Bungie is just, Marathon just feels like it's in a rough spot, and it just feels like it really has a lot of pressure on it right now. Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion, and now this is the first project that Bungie is starting under Sony. It is the next big live service from Sony after the failure of Concord. This is Sony's next big push into the live service sphere, and between this and their other major live service game we know it's in development, Fair Games, it's just lost its lead director, Jade Raymond, who started the studio, Haven Studios, that is making this for Sony, so that's not great either. So between Sony's various live service projects and the ones that we also know kept getting canceled, like that Sony Santa Monica one, or that one from Days Gone Studio, what's their name? Ben Studio? Yeah, Ben Studios. It just feels like Sony's live services are not in a great place, and I can't help but wonder how many of these are even going to come out, you know? Is Marathon going to make it over the finish line, especially if they do end up having to go and remove all of these assets that Anti-Real made and have to basically just redo the environments from scratch? Again, it's an alpha, so there might be enough time left to do that, but that's probably going to be a major delay. With Fair Games losing Jade Raymond, is that going to move forward? Are they going to have to get a new director? What's going to happen there? It just feels like every one of Sony's live service attempts has either been a complete failure or in just this weird state of flux where nobody really knows what's happening with it. You know, with one major exception, with Helldivers 2, that did very well, but other than that, it really has just kind of been miss after miss after miss, and it's to the point where I have to wonder how much longer Sony is going to keep kind of pushing this live service train, especially too since a lot of it was a Jim Ryan initiative. Now that he's gone, I can't imagine a lot of these projects are going to make it much further, and I can't imagine many more projects like these will be greenlit in the future. But that's all I wanted to talk about, just kind of talk about the Marathon plagiarism thing. Like I said, it's just baffling to me that this has happened so many times at Bungie, and I have a hard time trusting their quote-unquote review process if this does just keep happening. But who knows, maybe they'll sort this out, maybe they will find a way to stop this from happening in future. That's also assuming if Bungie has a future, because I'll be honest, I don't know where Bungie ends up if Marathon doesn't do well. Like, if Marathon ends up not succeeding, and if Marathon ends up getting such a negative reception as it's getting now if it's alpha, I don't know if I see Bungie sticking around as a studio, but we'll see. That's a story for another day. Hopefully they do sort this out. Hopefully Anti-Real gets the compensation she deserves for having her work fucking stolen right under her nose, and hopefully they find some way to turn this around, because it's not looking good for Marathon even this early on. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but yeah, that's all I want to talk about. See y'all, have a great day, and be sure to crank up the noise.